Hello everyone, it's Diane at the Creative Bohemian, and today we're going to continue with making furniture for the Storybook Cottage. And what exactly we're going to do is finish this chair, so it's going to go from this to this. And there's a few steps. It's actually fairly easy, not too difficult. It just takes a little bit of time. And I'll show you step by step how I got from this to this. Now, first thing is your wire. The wire is to mimic vines going along these already in place vines, along the back of the chair and a few on the legs. Now I originally had two different color wires. These are very thin floral wire, and one was white and I painted it green, and the other one comes as green. And then what I do with this is I'm going to twist it along the existing chair. I always start at the bottom and then wind up through the top. Using a pair of jeweler's pliers, I make a little bit of a curl to start off with, and what I do with that is then I take it and I put it on the back of the leg, and before I do anything else, I take a little bit of super glue and put a little dab of that. Always make sure you reclose your super glue, because I've gone through so many tubes of it from not doing that. And just hold it there for a few seconds. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rest of the wire, and I'm going to weave it through this part and come out on this side. Again, it's supposed to look like a vine. Going through and around as if it was climbing up on its own, and try to be as decorative as you can. You can make it as tight as you want or as loose as you want. Once you have that looking the way that you want it, then you can end it with a nice curly cue. Something like that, to give it a little bit more dimension. And you just play with it until it's pleasing to the eye. Once you do that one, then you can move on to the dark green. I did one on each side. I did bright green on one side and the dark green on the other, as if they were from two different plants. For now, we're going to set this aside, and we're going to work on creating the leaves and the flowers for the chair to decorate it. Now, let's start with the leaves. I took mulberry paper that was already green and put a layer of Mod Podge on each side, let it dry, and then I took a scissor and even out the edge, and just fold it over a couple of times. Make a fan shape, and then I just cut out some very small leaves. You can see them. depending on what size you want them to be on your chair. And if you have leftover, just keep cutting leaves. You can't have too many because some will work better than others. And there we go. You have a bunch of leaves to use for decorating the chair. To make the flowers, I took a natural color mulberry paper and I gave it a coat of lilac colored acrylic paint and then sealed both sides with the Mod Podge again. What I'm using to cut out the petals for the flower in order to build a flower, you can see the flowers here. I make each petal, cut it out, and glue it around a styrofoam ball, which I'll show you where I got that too. The styrofoam ball is from a plant that I got in the dollar store. It's a fake floral, and each one of these little pieces is a little piece of styrofoam. You could find anything equivalent to this in the florist section of your craft store. You can make them yourself out of paper clay, out of polymer clay. There's many ways to find something like this to use as the center of your flower. I happen to have this already from a trip to the dollar store, but as I said, you can use almost anything. So what we do is, now I happen to have this shell shaped cutout, but you can use just a circle. I also have a circle one, smaller circle than this, but unless you want big flowers. But you can use pretty much any shape you want to mimic a petal of a flower. You could cut out, just like we cut out the leaves, you could just cut out a circle for each petal. I just used this because I happen to have it on hand. And there we go, that's one petal. And you just cut out a bunch of them. Now, to start with, you're going to take 2 petals, let me get some craft glue. Using a toothpick, I just put craft glue on one end of one of the petals, just a tiny bit. Join the petals together until they're one piece. As you can see, as I hold one end, they open up like that. And then what I did was, in the seam where they meet, I put more glue and put one of the styrofoam or balls for the center of the flower. And I let this dry. Let it dry completely, otherwise the ball or the paper will come apart. Now what you would do next, here is one where it's already dried. I would push back the petals. I would take another petal, add more glue again, and on the side from here to here, I would take this petal and wrap it around only at the bottom. just like that. Then I would do another one at this side, and then I would just keep doing it until I was happy with the way the flower came out. There you go. There's the second one. Hold it in place till this tacky glue takes. It's probably a good idea to let it dry in between. But when you're done, you'll have several flowers like this, where you went around and around in several layers until you have a floral shape. So the flowers are done. I only have 3 on my chair. You could have a lot more. But now we're going to go back to our chair and we're going to put the leaves on. Wherever I'm going to put a flower is where I'm going to put a leaf. And the main place to put a flower is right here where these 2 larger branches meet. Put some glue. Pick up a flower, a leaf. Put it, glue it down. And wherever you plan on putting a flower, I think I'll put one here, is where you would put the glue. And I'm going to put another one here. Now, besides where the flowers are going to go, I also sometimes put leaves in other areas without a flower, like right here. Seems like a good place. Whatever looks natural. Now don't worry if they end up being too large. You can always trim them after they've dried. Now, in order to put the flowers down, because they have a lot of bulk at the back and it's rather pointy, it's not flat, I take a scissor once they're completely dry and I flatten the back that way. And this one, add some glue, and that goes right there. Add some glue here. Put that one right here. And the third one's going to come right down here. Now, once all that dries, we're going to come back and we're going to finish the moss on the seat. What I used for the moss for the chair is moss you can buy at the craft store. This is the moss collection, and it cost about, I believe it was like $6 for the whole bag. And I am going to be using more of this moss on the outside of the cottage, so it was worth paying the full $6 because I'm going to be using a lot of this, and I'm sure there's future projects that I'm going to use this for as well. Now, it comes in these little tufts. They're messy. They do make a little bit of a mess, but they're perfect for, they're very spongy, and they're perfect for just gluing down, and they do stay with regular craft glue. And you can cut it, so that's another bonus. And I like this piece because it's big and it'll make it easier for me to glue down. Just take wherever you want it to go. Now I did pull it down over the sides, so I'm going to put glue towards the back. I was very generous with the glue because you want this whole thing to kind of squish down into a cushion. I already see that I can take this tuft and push it down back here. Make sure you don't cover your flowers or any of the vegetation that you really like that you put down already, because sometimes something just works out so perfectly you don't want to cover that. Now I'm just squishing this down so that the glue grabs it. Squeeze it down. Do it in the front. Don't worry that it's overly long. We're going to trim it afterwards. Wherever you want it. If there are spots that you missed, just cut a little piece off and glue it again. You just rip pieces off and put it where you need it. Okay, I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I trim it. And while I'm letting that dry, I'm going to do the next step that I took. And that was to highlight the green leaves with a little bit of lighter color. I'm going to use this brighter green. And what I did was I just went over the tips, just so it brightens up the whole piece and goes along with this one vine, because this color that I used of mulberry paper isn't exactly bright and sunny. It's very dull, very woodland, but this is a fairy chair, so I wanted to make it look a little bit more whimsical and not so woodsy. I did think of leaving the chair woodsy looking, but in the house that I'm putting it in, the cottage, the cottage is just so brown, and I got one right here, I can't even see it, and it's just so dark and brown that I wanted to cheer it up and I wanted to give it some color, and I'm doing that. For a Storybook Cottage, it needed a little bit of storybook colors. Can do both sides. Okay, now it's time to trim the moss. Make sure it's all down how you want it. And then I just go around, and wherever I think it needs a little bit of a haircut, keeping it more as natural as you can. without it sticking out all over the place. And here you are with your 2 chairs, looking similar but not exactly the same, which is actually what I was hoping for. I didn't want them to look exactly the same, otherwise they wouldn't look natural. And one is a little bit wider in the seat than the other. And I did add an extra couple of leaves down there. Maybe I'll add them later on this one. But there we are. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, drop me a comment and let me know that. I hope you give it a like and tune in to our next video where we start making the bedroom furniture for the Storybook Cottage. I'll see you next time at the Creative Bohemian. Thanks.